Hello, beautiful family. I've not been on here in what feels like forever. Just finding our feet here at Shambala. And yeah, I just felt like jumping on to talk about so many things have come up in the last few months of doing what we're doing, of creating Shambala, and with that creating community, creating a sustainable way of living off the land, creating a business, creating a space that brings people together for healing, for awakening, for connecting, for empowering, for creating the new earth. And man, everything, and it's amazing, and we chose to do that, and it's a massive journey in any way. And so the last 5 months since getting here, probably longer than that, have been nothing short of up-leveling and expanding through lessons and through growing pains, because that's the only way we grow. And and I will continue to learn to the day I die. But this is like the ultimate spiritual practice for us and where we're at anyway. And so much has already happened, and so many revelations and initiations have happened in the last few months. And anyway, what I felt like sharing on today has to do with all that. And we by now have a whole bunch of beautiful people living with us. We're about 6-7 families, 8-ish, coming, going. Some are permanent, semi-permanent. And yeah, with that, a lot is coming up, living together, on the same land, working on the same visions and so forth. And so one of the questions that came up with a dear friend of us, who's almost like a surrogate mother or big sister for me, when we were chatting, we were contemplating, and she was like, how do we get people away in general? How do we move away from putting a money value onto what we're here to contribute? So in our context, that is living together in community. And there's, for example, everyone wants to enjoy this beautiful land, and in return, this land can give us so much, like increase our life quality so much. It can enable us to create our expand our own businesses and creative ventures through this, create more quality time in nature for our children and all that. And obviously, where the spaces we're living in needs to be maintained, right? Like life is maintenance. To obtain a certain quality of life and living standard, we have to do something for it. And that means that life is always a co-creation, right? Whether that's within our own families, whether that's within business relationship, whether that's within living in community. It's about to rain, the light fully changed. Hello. And so many things around that are coming up, which is really amazing, like so many contemplations and so forth. For example, in our case, it's always a bit more practical to use an example, so use ours. We're looking at, what tasks on the land need to be done, so therefore what kind of people could we have come in for what kind of exchanges. So it can be rent exchange, it can be money exchange. Same. It can be a work exchange, and then it's about, cool, how do you value, again in our case, where you live against, or like how much workload is to be done for where you live. And so my beautiful friend and I, who's she had businesses all her life, she's 50, she could be my mother, and so it's very beautiful to have a soundboard like that, someone who does have a very similar way of thinking and being, but also this extra life experience on top, and bounce things back, and talking about, well, we could put on, okay, for, I don't know, living here per week, there's this many hours we need you to do of work, but then if if it's skilled work, then it would be different rate again, and all that kind of stuff. That's actually creating so much using so much of our energy. And that's what I want to get to, because that's not just an issue or something that we're contemplating here with creating what we're wanting to create, but that's something we all contemplate, everyone, no matter who we are, whether you're employed, whether you run your own business, whether you're moving towards just working of bartering and so forth, and whether it's just transactions of giving and taking within our families or friendships. It doesn't matter what shape or form it takes. That's what life is about, those transactions, right? Life is transactional. And so now we're living in a pretty fucked system that's it's broken. Money has been corrupted. There has been a time and place for money, and there still is. Like currently we're trying to cross the bridge from this old paradigm world into moving into a new world. While we're crossing the bridge, we're still attached to things like monies and mortgages and the old contracts and the old law systems and all that, right? And we have a very, very, very strong conditioning around everything has a monetary value to it and da-di-da, right? And again, we are asking ourselves, how do we get to a point where we don't have to nut out in detail? This is the amount of hours we need you to do per week in exchange for living here, our example. Or this is how much you pay me for me doing a consultation with you. Or you've cut my hair and that's worth in money terms so much of my services. You know, this whole dilemma of like finding equal value in our transactions, money or not. And I was saying we're just not at a stage yet, and we're not, where we can put aside like this is how many hours are needed, or this is how much an hour of your time is worth in money terms, so we can, you know, work out the living rates and all that. We're still crossing that bridge of moving away from it. And so I've been contemplating since, how do we move away from it? Can we move away from it? And we can, but only if we as the collective do the work. And the work in this case is our spiritual growth. And it is the whole, you know, in order to be able to move away from I am worth this many dollars per hour or per project, or, you know, and then we also have this whole inflation model going on at the moment where a lot of people are charging a lot of money on the basis of actually overcoming some lack of self-worth. You know, we all have a money story, and we're all probably working on our money and worth stories in different capacities. And then as natural progression of that healing journey, often we find that, oh shit, I don't value myself at all. I've been giving myself away and have been used. Not that other people intentionally used us, but by undervaluing ourselves. And then once we realize that, we often go to the completely other extreme of, right, this is what I'm worth, so I'm going to charge this, or I'm going to say no to that, and have like super rigid boundaries, and that reflects in the current money inflation as well. And again, that's actually a result from lack, which leads us back to the same root cause of why do we have to put a value on, cool, in order to live here, I'm going to work so many hours a week, or in order to, you know, for our swap, my service is worth this, but your service is only worth that. It all has the same root cause, which is we need to do this spiritual work. By the way, all this makes sense in my heart, and now I'm just sitting here trying to word it and express it in language that hopefully makes sense to other people too, and I really do want your input as well. But what I have come to is that we need to do the spiritual and energetic value work within ourselves. And what's at the basis of that is the only way in which we can overcome having a evaluation system like money. Before we had money, by the way, in history, we traded in furs, or we traded with conch shells, or it doesn't matter, you know. If money was to go and we didn't do our spiritual practice, if we didn't spiritually grow and we tried to get rid of an outdated money system, we would only replace the same shit by something else. It would be, you know, same shit, different modality, really, and we would still be stuck with the same dilemma. So what I've come to recognize is that at the basis of all that is, in order to get rid of this external tool like money to put a value onto it, we all need to return to love. It sounds so like airy-fairy, but it's true. At the basis of life itself, you know, our true natural state, our capacity, or the essence of being human is that we can devote ourselves to love, and our natural state is laughter and bliss and love. And when we can really, truly, like authentically return home to this natural state of ours, to this state of love, then we will not need external evaluation or validation anymore, which in that sense then is the same. Because if we start to do things for the love of it, we don't have to put a money value on it, you know? And that's what, for me, that's also why I've withdrawn for the last few months. Not withdrawn, I've been so busy with just being in Shambala, taking it in, creating it, and having my own profound lessons in that process. But I've kind of taken, you know, I've always struggled with labels and working in the industry I'm working with. You know, what do I put out there with what labels and so forth, for exactly this reason. That there's so much talk and so much like over intellectualizing and over conceptualizing stuff out there, and yet we are still in that same crazy, pretty fucked up world we were in a few years ago, a few decades ago even, you know. And so what's missing? And what's missing is this embodiment part of, yeah, we can all talk about, you know, self-worth and our value and so forth. And if we only talk about it and we don't actually embody it, it results in those things of overcharging to, you know, overcome our self-worth, or undercharging because we still haven't found our self-worth, and all those things, like those still disembodied experiences that are still coming from a place of lack, of insecurity, of doubt, and so forth. So in order to overcome that, we need to go through this process of embodied healing and embodied awakening, leading to embodied empowerment. And at the essence of that can only be returning back to love, like being devoted to love. When we do things for love, they do not need an external value to it. It's just like when you are truly standing in your truth and you know what your truth is, you suddenly don't have that need anymore to have that truth understood or acknowledged or validated by anyone else, by anyone outside of you, right? Thank you. You know, when you know what you stand for, suddenly it doesn't matter if someone else stands for that too, or if someone else gets it. It doesn't even matter if someone else understands you, because if you know that that's your truth, that's all you need to know. Truth doesn't need to justify itself. And it's the same with love. Maybe love and truth are the same, and we just, you know, conceptualize it differently. It probably is. It's all part of the same natural state of being. It's all our truth, love. And so same thing, love doesn't put a money value on it. You know, I just went through that with our little duck. I shared on just in a photo. He got his wing amputated for after a horrendous accident, and I don't want to get into that, but that came down to, you know, and even the vet asking like, well, do you want to go ahead with it because it's going to be $3,000 to $4,000. And I was like, the mind, my mind, yeah, not my heart, not my body, my mind was like, holy fuck, $3,000 to $4,000 for a duck. How can we justify that? You know? And that's the heady, that's the conditioning, that's society coming in with it, you know. We've just been trained into so much rigidity and becoming the machine and being this hamster and this hamster wheel, just like going with emotions, being part of the machine where we're just a number and we lose our humanness. And with that, we actually lose our respect for life and our meaning, the meaning of life, and our connectedness to what truly matters. And suddenly we contemplate things like, oh my God, that's $3,000 or $4,000 for a duck. Is that worth it? And then there's people who then come to the conclusion, well, you know, now I just put the duck down and we get a new duck because they're only $15, you know. Or we can look at it like I do and did, and that's why my heart was absolutely broken with this incident. And we did get his wing fixed, and far out, it turned out being $2,500, and it could have been the best thing that ever happened to me. It's certainly not $2,500, and we just have sitting there to spend on our entire flock of ducks if they were all to be ripped apart tomorrow and need fixing. But, you know, then my heart and my body was like, oh my God, this is a life. And it is a life that I'm very much attached to, that I feel so much love for. How could I ever possibly just go and put an end to this life because of a broken wing, which is no more than a broken arm in a human. If your child had an accident and you know, and its arm needed amputation, you wouldn't put a child down. Of course you would go and do whatever you can to save that life, right? We have this different attachment to it because we can still feel that love to our own children, but we've been so conditioned that many of us have been very disconnected from the broader context of life and the broader context of love and the broader context of, therefore, truth and respect and value, right? And okay, so coming back to my original story of value, how can you put value onto your life? I honestly, when I felt into my heart, and it didn't take me long, in other situations it might take us longer, we realize you cannot put a value onto life. You know, that you would have never, like, if someone asked you, oh, the surgery for your child is going to be so many $1,000s, like, yeah, in this 3D reality, it's like, holy fuck, that's money I don't have in my bank. What am I going to do? But your heart knows that that's not actually even a choice, right? Like, of course, you're going to do what you can. And what we can depends on our means, right? But we're going to do what we can to save life, a life or life itself, when we're connected to love, right? See how love is like at the basis of everything? And that's bringing me back to putting value on ourselves, putting value to our services, and how can we move forward into the new earth, into creating a new paradigm where we don't measure ourselves on external values like money or conch shells, and therefore suddenly we are all worth something different, and a duck is just a duck and a human is worth so much more, or this person works in that industry or is a doctor, therefore they're worth it so much more. We start to pedestal them, and somehow suddenly someone is superior, someone else is inferior, and this whole external validation and evaluation system has a lot to do with that. And why do we have that system? Because we moved so far away from our nature, getting stuck in this machine of invention, technology, blah, blah, you name it, like growing so used to comfort, and suddenly maintaining our comfort takes so much effort that most of us are busy with working freaking 9 to 5, working our butts off, not seeing our families, being discontented when we get home because we're so exhausted from spending so much time of our daily lives doing shit that we don't actually want to do, to get paid a very small amount in comparison to this negative state it brings us into, to survive and pay mortgage and send the kids to school and put food on our table and blah, 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 you know. And suddenly we're paying in money for all our basic needs. And because we now have to pay in money for being able to have food and live and have a quality life and breathe fresh air and drink fresh water, we all start to put a money value or its equivalent onto each other and onto life itself. And we have not noticed that that has disconnected us so much from our natural way of being in our natural state, which is love. And you know, it's like if we now try to come back to this state of love, we do that by feeling into, you know, of course we all get how we feel love for each other, hopefully, and our children and all that, but how can we expand that and bring the state of love into what we do in our day-to-day, and how we can therefore come together, be that with our families, with our friends, with creating a tiny community that can be our family unit within our neighborhood, or creating an open or closed community, or however it looks. How can we come together and create this new world where we're all equal in that sense, and where we all contribute equally in different ways? Firstly, by getting real with ourselves and connecting deeper with ourselves and feeling into what is it that I am good at, but that I also enjoy. What is it that that's coming naturally to me? Like, you know, it's also our human nature to want to help, by the way. That's why we go and volunteer and all that, but that's also why it feels incredible when you give someone else a compliment and you see their entire being light up and it fills your own cup. Or, you know, I was so heartbroken, so our little Rebels duck incident happened on Friday evening. And I had the entire weekend, Saturday and Sunday, planned to go and do healing sessions at a retreat. I was going to do five sessions back to back each day. I ended up doing 3 the first day and then 5. And I was so heartbroken, mind you. I felt the most in the last few days, especially the weekend gone. I felt the most I have felt, like intensity, in the last probably 5 or 10 years. Like the most I've felt compared to the last of 5-10 years together, you know. It was so intense, so intense. I was crying for days, just processing emotions, and what I was feeling at that time, while I was feeling so much sadness and despair and hurt and all that, was, oh my God, this is what it feels like to be alive, man. Because this is, right, we are living in a world of polarity with night and dark and cold and hot and day and night and all that, and so also pleasure and pain, and so the capacity to feel shows us how alive we are. But the perfect remedy was to go and do those healings and be in that space where I give love and nurturing. And obviously we do need to be committed to our spiritual growth and to not be caught up and attached to our own grief and our own, you know, negativity and pass that on to people, but to allow ourselves to just sit in our own feelings and allow them to pass through and come up. And that way, you know, that's why a broken heart is an open heart. But I spent the weekend giving to other people from the bottom of my heart because it was broken open so much. And that was actually filling and stitching up my own heart again, you know. So that just is a little analogy for how it's our nature to give, right? I'm sure we would have all had incidences in our life, big or small. If you have children, you would have that every day. Like every time they are sad, your heart is breaking, and every time they experience joy, however little or big it is, your heart is bursting with joy for them, right? It's our nature. And again, that's what it means to return back to love and be devoted to that love as well. And so if we can start to reassociate with that state and reassociate with allowing ourselves to feel, that's our compass to navigating our way through life, and within that, creating a thriving life within being social and in community with other beings, and within this transactional nature of life, right? By this feeling compass helps us to feel, what do I actually love to give to other people? What do I love to give to the world? What do I love to therefore contribute? And, you know, there can be really grand things, and then there are also really little things. Oh, thank you, darling. Thank you for receiving it. You know, it's like, again, my friend Kim, who I had this conversation with, we, for example, again, for example sake, they're living here, they're paying a small amount of money per week to cover the stuff that costs us money, such as electricity and water and so forth. And everything on top of that, we barter through exchange. And never once have we had to talk about, well, this is how many hours need to be done, or these are the particular projects, because on both ends, we are doing our work. And the result of that is that Kim comes up to me and she's like, let me know when you need to turn over the meeting house or whatever. Or by the way, I've been going over there, pottering around and planting and tidying up the kitchen and looking after all the plants, because that's what I love doing. I love pottering around. And so for her, having the opportunity to be involved on this land, be part of this community, and then contribute in ways that she loves. For her, it's preserving and cooking, and she loves to pretty up spaces and potter around. That's actually taking things off my plate while I'm busy with doing the marketing for the place and and it works in exchange for them being here and living here and making the place their own home, right? That's our particular arrangement. And suddenly we do not need to put a money value either on what their rent is worth or on what her doing some cleaning for us is worth, or collecting the fruit in the orchard and preserving it and everyone ends up with a jar. You know, there's no more money in there. Not only no money, there's no more comparison of, well, I've done so many hours but my rent is only worth that, you know, anything like that, because either side of the exchange is coming from our heart and it's rooted in love. Like, it makes my heart sing. What we want to create, but I can only speak for myself, with Shambala, is a space that allows people to come and be their full expression and come and heal and come and immerse in a taste of this is what it means for all of us to create the new earth. And for some it means it comes in the way of actually living here with us for a time and spending time. For others it means coming through events and, you know, retreats and offerings and all that. But this is my contribution to the world. This is what makes my heart sing. It means so much to me to see epic shit go down in this space. Like, other people run their retreats, people come and join our offerings, and leaving with a full cup and full heart, you know. And then it's, for example, filling Kim's cup as well, to be involved with that. And her special contribution within that is to, oh my God, I just want to be part of this and live here. And what I would love to contribute is make the spaces pretty and take on the cooking and fill all the hungry bellies with doing mad community cook-ups, you know, in exchange for being here. Does that make sense? Yeah, I feel like I'm quite good at repeating myself with bringing on a lot of different examples for the same thing. So I'm just going to stop it here. But yeah, I think that's all I wanted to dive into when talking about how do we actually, in practicality, create a new world of equality. And equality is and can be a thing. And it can go as far as that the life of a duck means just as much to someone, and we would just go to the same lengths for it as for the life of a human. That's equality. Equality is also that we all have equal value in what we contribute, no matter whether your contribution is cleaning a space, which often in society there's a certain stigma to, oh my God, you didn't, like, your profession, you didn't go to university for, you don't have a degree for, or a qualification, you know, and suddenly we put it down again and create inequality. Whereas if we can come into the space of, well, actually, university or qualification or certification or whatnot doesn't fucking matter. What matters is what truly, like, think about it, what truly qualifies you to contribute in the way you want to contribute from your heart. Well, if it's coming from your heart, that's what's qualifying you, because that's what's giving you the capacity to hold space, to do whatever you're doing, be it cleaning a space, or, I don't know, holding a healing container for someone, or doing a medical operation on someone's brain. Like, what's going to qualify you the most? Of course, there's certain techniques to all of that, right? But what's going to actually qualify you the most for that in the end, and it's going to create abundance for you in return as well. And remember, abundance is not just money, it's what's overall enhancing the quality of your life. Is if something is coming from your heart, because only then you can be in whatever you're doing with 150% of your devotion, of your being, of your presence, of your energy, right? And when we can be in that state, and it is a state where we are so present and so devoted and so into what we're doing and so embodying the intention of creating the best possible outcome we possibly can with our actions, then how could you possibly put a money value on it? And how could you possibly say, well, you only cleaned and that's lighter physical work? No, it's not. It's actually fucking hard physical work, especially making beds and all that. But you know, you only cleaned. It's like, it's unskilled work. So therefore, you should be doing, you know, like, you should be doing more hours than I do, or get paid less than what I do when I do a Ayurvedic consultation on someone, or do a whatever surgery on someone, or, you know, because if we're both coming equally from our heart, then that's equal value. Because the truth is, I'm probably not, sticking with Kim and I as an example, I am probably not as passionate about, well, I simply don't have the capacity right now, or maybe not ever, to put the same amount of love and heart energy and the same capacity into cooking up a community feed, or like tidying up those spaces, as Kim does right now, who's in a fully different phase of life, in a fully different situation, with different responsibilities, with different things going on in her life, but also with different passions and values and priorities and so forth, right? So we again, that's the key to creating this new earth, really feeling into what am I here to contribute from my heart? What is making my heart sing? Things as little as providing a nourishing meal for my children at night, or seeing the boys work out there, Andy's expanding the yoga shala and doing hard physical yaka, and just bringing over a little platter with tea and refreshments that I know is actually going to make them feel like, oh my god, lunch? Oh yes. And you know, you can feel the weight that you're taking off someone else's shoulders by your contribution, and that's filling your own heart, and that's the value, right? So yeah, stopping it there. That's all I wanted to jump on here for, talking about creating the new earth in practicality, coming together in a way of eco-conscious living, creating, expanding, and so forth, where we move away from outdated systems like patriarchy and money and external validation and external evaluation and so forth, because it's a lot of pretty talk out there, but I know there's many other people who are currently trying to walk that walk like we do with what we're trying to create at Shambala, with trying to find ways of, cool, we've heard of all those things of like, this is the ideal world, this is the new earth paradigm, this is like living in communities where it's at, but now, and yes it is, but now it's about finding the practical ways of actually making that a physical reality in the physical world we're living in, and getting to live and experience that in each of our lifetimes right now while we're in those human bodies. Because in order to really anchor that down into here, we need to walk the bridge from the outdated old systems, you know, and physical hierarchies and things that have been huge part of our old social conditioning of living in human society on earth. We need to walk the bridge from that to creating a new earth. And that means that we have to take some old things and reassess them, just like, cool, okay, we want to, you know, everyone's trying to shit on the system, and it's like, fuck this system. And cool, that's great, but if that's the attitude you have and that's the action you take, fuck the system and that's it, you're not going to make a change. You're not going to change the system, and you're not going to make your own life any better. In fact, it's incredibly inefficient and ineffective to do that. Like, if we have that attitude, fuck the system, okay, that's complaining. How can we be solution-based? What's the solution? So why is the old system shit? Why do we have a problem with the money system? Why does it not work? For me, it's because of the inequalities that we evaluate life with, or put a dollar value to life, that someone else's time is worth more apparently than someone else's equal amount of time and all that. So now we need to find practical ways of how can we overcome that. And at the basis of doing that in physicality and practicality in any way is doing our spiritual work. And our spiritual work starts with deeply connecting to ourselves. And in order to deeply connect to ourselves, we need to look at our deficiencies as in things that need to be healed. We need to look at old trauma cycles, old outdated beliefs and conditionings that need to be addressed and healed, because that's the only way in which we can truly empower ourselves and then truly consciously awaken. Consciously awaken, by that I mean that we can take conscious actions and consciously choose our direction of how do we want to go. Cool, the old system doesn't suit me anymore. I want to create a new world, and I can consciously choose how do I get there, right? At the basis of that is really connecting deeply with ourselves in order to heal embodiedly, empower authentically by standing in your truth. Don't borrow it from over there, and consciously awaken. And that's the essence and the foundation of then connecting deeper to each other and to the world, and create a thriving life that's based on our values, on our morals, and on our humanness, and on our devotion to love, right? And that's it. That's it. It's actually very simple but profound. Very simple as in, it's not, you know, we don't need to like, it's not about going to university for 12-year degrees by the time we're someone, or any of that. It's not about that anymore. It's not about the intellectual component. It's not about working your freaking ass off in a job or in a position or in following a certain lineage until you're 50 or 60 or 70. Now it's about going within and doing the groundwork, and the groundwork of creating a new physical, practical earth, 3D living as we are right now, is actually the spiritual work, the connection work, the relational work. So we can truly connect to love again, and to ourselves, and to our own value that actually has no money value, it has no conch shell value, and it cannot actually be compared to someone else's value either, because we're all different. And in order to work to bring different things together, we need to learn to not invalidate one in favor of another, but we need to learn to just accept that we are different. We're not better or worse, not right or left, up or down, superior or inferior. We are different, and that's it. It's like two sides of the same coin. And how can we make that dance? How can we be in that dance that creates harmony in those differences? Such as, back to my earlier example of, contributing work for living somewhere or whatever it is. Once we are in this place of truth and love and true validation, validating ourselves, not needing a money value or whatever for it, and everything we do comes from our heart, from our true devotion, and from our need, not just want, it's a need to contribute, then we will probably see that, when it comes to practical examples, such as, Andy's been building the yoga shala for freaking hours on end, doing physical, hard, tough labor, that does take a lot more, physical energy, for example, than maybe going around and pottering and watering plants and so forth. But then it's about, we don't need to, open that can of worms up on the table and kind of go into that 3D spiral from the mind and now come up with numbers, and I've done so many hours and you should do that. Just if we're all coming from the heart, then we will be able to see that from the heart, and we will be able to see, for example, oh gosh, those boys have been slaving away for the last week, like working hard, building that yoga shala. So I am feeling from my heart that I truly want to help them out and support them more and help them replenish and nourish. And so we will naturally do more of the lighter work to take weight off the shoulders of those who are currently doing the harder work. You know what I mean? And then in the bigger picture, that will all balance out again, because there will be other times where we are doing the fucking hard work while they've done their hard yards in that moment, and the dance will balance out again by them coming in and now taking the weight off our shoulders. So you also see how it's all dynamic. And again, that's why once we can, perspective comes in there too. Once we can achieve this fluidity of perspective, fluidity of seeing the microcosm, the current moment, this tiny situation, to the macrocosm, the big picture, the lifetime or soul journey scale. Once we can find fluidity between zooming in, zooming out, zooming in, zooming out, that's also part of truly finding value from the heart. And then we are able to scrap the old systems like the monetary system, and I've done so many hours for so many hours of that, and we all come back to true equality as the basis for creating a new earth. All right, I'm going to leave it here. Thanks for joining, my loves. I'm going to post this. And so, yeah, if you just jumped on now, you can go back on it. But yeah, that's my little share on thoughts sparked, or feelings, a little heart share sparked by recent experiences of the last few months of this grand venture on how do we create the new earth and move beyond, once and for all, the need of external evaluation and validation and comparison. So yeah, thank you for jumping on. I would love to hear your thoughts, by the way. always in the comments below. Feel free to send me a direct message, feel free to ask questions. I'm also starting the podcast up again soon that has rebirthed as Elemental Alchemy with Lena Kalia, and anything and everything I just talked about is also at the very essence. Like, this is my driver, my motivation for doing what I do. That's at the essence of all of our events, of our courses, of any experiences around here at Shambala. That's at the essence, you know, or that's the level of depth of my work with people one-on-one on group scenarios. So if what you just heard in this resonated with you and you want to embark deeper on this journey to wholesomeness and creating, embodying that new earth and becoming a leader in that new earth paradigm, then reach out at any time. But also discussions are always so welcome. So yeah, comment below, let me know your thoughts, your experiences, reach out via message, and thank you for being here. Lots and lots of love.